0617 local time, Strait of Hormuz. Sea state low. Visibility 8 miles under a pale morning haze. The traffic separation lanes are already filling with tankers, container ships and coastal traffic moving through one of the narrowest pieces of strategic water on Earth. Inside the strike group, everything is procedural. Helm corrections are small, air picture clean, surface picture routine. The carrier holds steady in transit posture, grey hull cutting a controlled line through calm water. Then a low contact appears on the northern edge of the screen. At first it is just one intermittent return, bearing 027 relative, range 14.6 nautical miles, speed fluctuating between 34 and 38 knots. Small radar cross-section, no AIS, no navigation lighting profile that matches merchant traffic. 30 seconds later, a second contact lifts beside it, then a third. The operator narrows gain, stabilizes the picture, and the line of returns becomes a cluster. Inside the Combat Information Center, no one raises a voice. The carrier is USS Abraham Lincoln, moving westbound through the strait with escorts layered around her. One destroyer sits forward of the formation, offset to port. A cruiser rides deeper on the quarter. Air watch is routine. Flight deck status is controlled. Deck crews are in transit rhythm, not launch rhythm. On the bridge, the sea still looks quiet. On the scopes, it no longer does. 0619. 5 contacts now. Same sector, same high-speed profile. Bearing 028. Range 13.9 nautical miles. The system begins cross-referencing signatures, track behavior, and shoreline departure points. They are not fishing dhows. They are not harbor pilots. They are not commercial shuttles transiting lane to lane. Their closure rate is too high. Their formation too deliberate. Another return lifts from farther inshore. Then another. By 0621, the count reaches 9. The tactical picture sharpens. Wake geometry on electro-optical feed shows narrow hulls riding hard and light over the chop, each boat throwing a long white tail. Heat blooms suggest multiple outboards or inboard performance engines. Personnel count is hard to confirm at this range, but the silhouettes are wrong for civilian traffic. Too many bodies clustered around open mounts, too much speed, too much intent. Range 12.7 nautical miles, speed 39 knots, count now 12. They fan out before anyone hails them. That matters. Random traffic converges. Trained traffic shapes. 4 tracks hold the center line of approach. 4 more drift wider to starboard relative to the carrier's formation. The final 4 lag half a mile behind, using the glare line off the morning sun as visual clutter. It is not yet an attack. It is not routine either. The bridge gets the update. The escorts get the update. Air Wing watch officers get the update. The shared track picture floods across the formation. Every ship now sees the same thing at the same time. Maintain course. Log it. 0623. The forward destroyer refines surface search. The cruiser picks up cleaner skin paint on the outer element. Visual lookouts begin getting intermittent splashes of sunlight off hulls north of the traffic lane. The carrier holds 15 knots, constrained by the density of shipping and the geometry of the transit. In open water, a carrier has room to breathe. Here, every course change affects everyone around her. The first bridge-to-bridge hail goes out on civilian frequencies. No response. A second hail follows in English, then in slower, more deliberate cadence. The contacts do not answer. They keep coming, still outside 10 nautical miles, still low in the water, still building closure. 0625, range 9.8 nautical miles. The lead four split by degrees, not abruptly. That matters more than speed. One pair shades toward the destroyer's port bow. The other pair drifts wider toward the carrier's projected line.
The starboard group mirrors them. The trailing four remain back, but not too far back. Enough to complicate the picture, enough to force the formation to watch all sectors at once. Classification changes from unknown surface contacts to probable fast inshore attack craft. On the carrier, the small boat defense posture tightens without fanfare. Remote mounts power up. Crew-served weapons teams move to stations. Optical trackers wake from passive watch to assigned sectors. The bridge orders additional visual lookouts to the wings. In the Combat Information Center, range rings tighten and the surface plot enlarges. No one speaks faster. The room just gets quieter. 0626, range 8.9 nautical miles. A camera on the destroyer catches the first clean image. Low, angular hull, open cockpit, hard turn capability, dark-clad crew, a mounted weapon shape forward, still partially obscured by spray. That is enough. The classification hardens. IRGCN fast craft. Not confirmed hostile, not yet, but no longer ambiguous. The strait narrows the options. To the south, the Omani side remains open but constrained by traffic. To the north, the Iranian coast is close enough that fast boats can launch, probe, and fall back with little warning time. Every ship in the formation understands what a swarm is designed to do. It is not supposed to win a duel with a carrier. It is supposed to compress decision time, saturate angles, force course changes, and test where discipline ends. The hails continue. No response. 0628, range 7.6 nautical miles, bearing 031, speed still 38 to 41 knots. The lead four are now clearly shaping two approach lanes. One lane points toward the destroyer's outer screen. The other points toward the carrier's starboard bow corridor, where a large merchant tanker is also moving westbound in the adjacent lane, slower, heavy, and predictable. The tanker is not part of the problem. It is part of the clutter. The formation begins to breathe. The destroyer ahead adds speed and opens left to widen the screen. The cruiser aft drifts slightly starboard to guard the quarter. Abraham Lincoln maintains course, then adjusts half a knot to preserve separation from merchant traffic without signaling panic. On the bridge, the order is calm. Maintain course, maintain spacing. Inside CIC, the count remains 12,
0629. A Seahawk is brought to alert launch. Flight deck crews move with the flat economy of people who have done this before. Nothing is rushed. Every movement is faster than normal and quieter than normal. Chocks clear. Rotor arc checked. Fuel state verified. Sensor package live. The aircraft lifts into the haze and noses out over the formation, low at first, then climbing to build a wider surface picture. Its camera immediately confirms what the scopes suggest. Weapons are uncovered on at least several boats. That changes the tone, not the procedure. Range 6.8 nautical miles. The lead boats are not just approaching. They are holding station relative to each other with practiced precision, leaving even intervals, preserving arcs, avoiding wake interference. This is coordinated. The system logs every track number, every course adjustment, every speed change. In the future, someone will slow all of this down frame by frame. Right now, it is all happening live. The Seahawk reports 2 boats on the port side group carrying visible mounted heavy weapons. The starboard group appears similarly configured. The trailing 4 are less clear, masked intermittently by glare and the superstructure of passing commercial traffic. The helicopter remains outside small arms comfort range, orbiting and feeding the picture. 0630. Range 5.9 nautical miles. Condition 3 is not enough anymore. Small boat defense stations go fully manned across the formation. On Abraham Lincoln, watch teams that were merely alert are now locked in. On the escorts, fire control optics are assigned to individual tracks. The cruiser begins designating outermost boats for continuous observation. The destroyer ahead narrows its focus to the lead pair angling closest to the formation's projected path. Another warning goes out. This one is explicit. You are approaching a United States naval formation. Alter course immediately. Maintain safe distance. No response. 5 short blasts of the ship's horn cut across the water from the outer screen. It is the international danger signal. Civilian mariners know it. Naval crews know it. The fast boats hear it and do not change geometry. 0631. Range 5.1 nautical miles. The water remains almost flat. That matters more than people think. In rough seas, small, fast craft lose precision. In calm water, they get options. They can jink late. They can split hard. They can ride close under another vessel's wake and still keep speed. Today, the sea is giving them all of that. The lead element on the port side angles inward. CPA to the destroyer tightens below 1,200 yards if current tracks hold. The starboard element drifts wider, almost lazy, almost testing whether the formation will prioritize the obvious threat and open room somewhere else. The trailing 4 remain behind the glare line. They are there, but not committed. The tactical picture sharpens again. This is no random harassment run. It is a bracket. 4 boats forward to fix attention. 4 boats abeam to measure response. 4 boats aft to exploit any gap that opens when the screen shifts. 0632. Range 4.4 nautical miles. The Seahawk drops lower and slides starboard, using the angle of the sun to get cleaner visuals into the outer boats. On feed, the crews are visible now. Helmets, headsets, body armor or load-bearing vests.
One gunner turns his weapon mount a few degrees outward, then back. Not a full lay, not enough for hostile act, enough to be logged. Inside the Combat Information Center, nobody uses dramatic language. Track 117, closure 38 knots.
Track 121, starboard group holding offset. Track 124, trailing element masked intermittently. Those are the kinds of sentences that fill the room. 0633, range 3.8 nautical miles. The portside lead pair accelerate to 42 knots. The destroyer ahead responds by shifting further left, hull physically interposed between the carrier's line and the fastest approach. The cruiser aft comes up a few knots, enough to shorten the distance to Lincoln's starboard quarter. The carrier remains centered, massive, deliberate, and seemingly slow only because everything around her is moving too fast. On the bridge of Abraham Lincoln, no one wants a hard maneuver in this water unless absolutely necessary. A carrier in the Strait of Hormuz is not a knife fighter. It is the center of a formation designed to keep knife fighters away. The hails continue. The warning sequence continues. No response. 0634, range 3.1 nautical miles. The portside element now clearly crosses into the zone where intentions are no longer academic. They are not merely near, they are shaping an intercept. The destroyer's small caliber mounts train visibly. Crew-served weapons track. The Seahawk slides laterally to remain offset from all potential arcs. The helicopter aircrew calls out hull count again. 12 contacts, 4 forward, 4 starboard, 4 aft. Then the complication arrives. A fully laden gas carrier, eastbound in the opposite lane, enters the geometry between the formation and the trailing four for just under a minute. On radar, the big merchant hull blooms into a bright slab of reflected energy. On visual feeds, its superstructure blocks the stern quarter view. The aft contacts flicker in and out around it, lost, reacquired, lost again. For 40 seconds, the picture is incomplete. That is all a trained crew needs. When the trailing element reappears, it is no longer trailing. 2 of the 4 have broken hard around the merchant ship's stern and are now sprinting at high speed toward Abraham Lincoln's starboard quarter, bearing shifting rapidly, range 2.6 nautical miles, and collapsing. They are not attacking the screen, they are trying to get under it. That is the twist. The entire geometry changes in one update. What had looked like a broad swarm is now a split-axis push, with the obvious threat still forward and the real compression building astern, where a carrier's wake, rudder flow and escort spacing leave the least emotional but most time-sensitive problem. Inside CIC, nobody swears. Nobody jerks a headset. The voice on the net stays flat. 2 contacts now fast on the starboard quarter, speed 43 knots, closest point of approach tightening, time to 1,000 yards under 2 minutes, set condition 1 for small boat defense. On Abraham Lincoln, the order runs ship-wide with that unmistakable change in atmosphere that requires no explanation. Watertight doors do not slam, but they close. Weapons safeties are checked again. Additional watchstanders lock into stations. Every gunner now has an assigned sector and a threshold. Every threshold is legal, procedural, and very close to being tested. 0635, range on the stern quarter pair, 2.1 nautical miles. The carrier adds 2 knots. It is not much, but in this water and at this spacing, it changes timing enough to help the screen. The cruiser astern responds immediately, accelerating to slide closer to the threatened quarter. The destroyer forward does not abandon the lead group. It cannot. That is the point of a split-axis move. Make the defender choose. The formation refuses to choose. It layers instead. The Seahawk breaks orbit and drops astern, low enough to make itself impossible to ignore. Rotor wash shreds the surface below. Camera stabilized, laser rangefinder active. Every second the aircraft stays overhead, the boats know they are seen, measured, and recorded. Another warning goes out, this time not generic. Alter course now. You are closing a defended naval vessel. Turn away immediately. The stern quarter pair keep coming. 0636. Range 1.7 nautical miles. The forward 4 begin a subtle inward drift at the exact moment the aft pair accelerate again. That timing is not accidental. It is meant to hold the destroyer's attention forward while the carrier's quarter gets squeezed. The starboard abeam group also starts tightening. Not enough to threaten collision, just enough to narrow the water and complicate maneuver options. This is how swarms work when they are done by professionals. Not by charging all at once, but by building several problems at once and waiting to see which one the defender mishandles first. The carrier does not mishandle any of them. On Lincoln's starboard side, the 25mm mounts are now hard tracking the 2 sprinting boats. Fire control optics hold steady on hulls that bounce, disappear in spray, then reappear larger every few seconds. Range ticks down in clean, cold numbers. 1.5, 1.3, 1.1 nautical miles. The stern quarter pair are now inside visual clarity. Dark hulls, bow rise heavy under throttle, spray over the gunnels. On one boat, a mounted weapon sits fully exposed with the gunner behind it. On the other, crew posture suggests the same. No muzzle flash, no launch, no hostile fire. But every threshold short of that is being approached at speed. 0637, 1,800 yards. The cruiser comes into the lane, not directly between the boats and the carrier, but angled enough to force the pair to choose whether they want to close a capital ship or a warship already tracking them with stabilized guns. The answer should be obvious. The boats keep coming. 5 more short blasts cut across the water. The Seahawk dips lower, then slides off their port side, a deliberate show of presence that turns warning into pressure. The helicopter is not there to chase. It is there to pin the geometry in place and make every movement unmistakable. On the forward axis, the destroyer calls out the lead 4 at 1.9 nautical miles. They have not broken away. They are still there, still holding pressure, still keeping the formation split. The starboard abeam group is now at 2.3 nautical miles and slowly tightening. The count is still 12. The difference is that 2 of them now matter far more than the others. 0638. Range to the nearest stern quarter boat, 1,400 yards. The tactical action officer makes the assessment every experienced watch team is already making. The boats have ignored repeated verbal warnings. They have ignored acoustic warnings. They are closing at high speed with weapons visible. They are angling toward the quarter of a defended carrier inside a constrained shipping lane. Lawful defensive measures are authorized if thresholds are crossed. No one says it twice. The first warning shots come not from the carrier, but from the escort guarding the quarter. Short burst, deliberate placement. A line of impacts splashes bright white across the water ahead of the lead boat, far enough to warn, close enough to leave no doubt. For half a second, the boat vanishes behind spray. Then it emerges, still pointed inward. Range 1,200 yards. The second boat shifts slightly wider, perhaps reconsidering, perhaps trying to force the escort to expose one mount to protect the other. The cruiser does not overreact. Its guns stay split. Its optical trackers stay smooth. The Seahawk keeps station just above and offset, relaying every heading change. On the main body of the carrier, men on the flight deck are now motionless, crouched behind steel where they need to be, seeing only slices of the encounter between parked aircraft and deck-edge structures. On the bridge, binoculars lock to the starboard quarter. On the starboard catwalks, the boats are no longer abstractions on a screen. They are hulls throwing wake toward a ship that displaces over 100,000 tons and still feels suddenly vulnerable because the threat is small, fast, and inside the horizon. 06, 38 and 30 seconds, range 1,000 yards. Another burst of warning shots walks across the water. This time the lead stern quarterboat yaws half a degree away, then straightens again. Not a withdrawal, a test. It is measuring whether the defender will stop at warning. The answer comes in posture, not panic. The cruiser turns a little more. The carrier holds her line. The Seahawk drops even lower and crosses a beam, forcing the two boats to run under rotor shadow and gun tracking at the same time. The destroyer ahead, still tied to the forward threat, reports the lead port-side boats now inside 1,500 yards, but checked by the screen and no longer closing as confidently. The split-axis pressure is beginning to fail, but it has not failed yet. 0639, range 850 yards. Time to a dangerously close quartering pass is now measured in seconds, not minutes. The nearest boat slams into a patch of wake thrown by the escort and skips hard, bow lifting, hull shuddering. For a moment its crew loses a little alignment. That is enough for the escort to put a third warning line exactly where the boat wants to go next. White splashes erupt across its projected path. The second stern quarterboat turns wider, uncertain now, looking for a lane that no longer exists. Forward, the destroyer reports one of the lead boats on the port axis has slowed. Another has widened. The starboard abeen group is starting to drift outward as well. This is what disciplined, layered defense does. It does not kill the whole picture at once. It peels confidence away from it, one lane at a time. 0640, range 700 yards. The stern quarter lead boat finally breaks. Not dramatically, not in a cinematic spray turn, just a hard, practical swing outboard that tells everyone watching the same thing. It has decided the defended quarter of a United States carrier is not where it wants to be. The second boat follows 3 seconds later, turning wider and dropping a few knots as it crosses the escort's bow line and reorients to the north. The Seahawk slides with them, holding overhead. The cruiser does not chase, it shepherds. Its guns remain trained until the geometry is unquestionably opening. On the forward axis, the lead 4 boats see the stern move collapse and begin losing cohesion. 2 turn early, 1 lingers, then turns. The last holds a few seconds longer, almost as if waiting for a different signal that never comes. The starboard abeam group starts to widen in earnest. Range opens to 1,000 yards, then 1,300, then 1,700. The whole swarm is still present, but the center is gone. Without the stern quarter compression, the formation is no longer being forced into decisions. Now the small boats are the ones making decisions, and every available option leads away from the carrier. 0641. The defensive phase is over. Now the tracking begins. No one relaxes. That comes later, if it comes at all. The formation shifts from imminent defense to controlled deterrence. The destroyer ahead eases back into a steadier screen. The cruiser holds starboard quarter guard. Abraham Lincoln returns to her planned transit speed, then trims it slightly to preserve clean separation from commercial traffic and her own escorts. The Seahawk maintains contact from overhead, recording hull markings, crew positions, weapon mounts, and every turn northward. The 12 boats begin to separate into smaller groups. 4 peel first, accelerating back toward the Iranian side of the strait. 3 more hold at range, shadowing but no longer closing. 2 remain stubbornly on a broad starboard arc, testing whether a second approach corridor exists. It does not. The aircrew feeds updated bearings. Northern group, range 2.4 nautical miles, opening. Eastern pair, range 2.1, holding but not closing. Abeam shadow group, range 2.8, speed down to 24 knots. The tactical picture remains alive, but the posture has changed. The carrier strike group is no longer bracing for impact. It is controlling the map. 0643. The hails continue, even now. Maintain safe distance. You are operating in an unsafe manner. Alter course north immediately. This time, one of the boats transmits. The reply is brief, low quality, and not useful as conversation. It is useful as evidence. Enough audio, enough timing, enough location to log and exploit later. The watch team records it without reaction. In these encounters, information is never just information. It is part of the outcome. The Seahawk reports the stern quarter pair now clearly withdrawing. Their speed has fallen below 30 knots. Their bows are no longer angled for interception. Their crews are no longer standing into their mounts the same way. Confidence looks different when it is leaving. 0645. Range to the nearest contact 2.9 nautical miles and opening. On Abraham Lincoln, some of the stillness begins to loosen. Not by much. Weapons remain manned. Lookouts remain fixed. The flight deck remains under restricted movement. But breathing changes. Hands unclench from handrails. Voices on the net space out by an extra second. In the Combat Information Center, the track histories lengthen into arcs curving north and east. Nothing about this feels like celebration. It feels like a line that held. The water is still calm. That is the part that stays with watch teams after encounters like this.
the mismatch between the sea and the decisions. Nothing in the weather suggests crisis. Nothing in the horizon suggests violence. Yet within a few thousand yards, 12 fast boats and a carrier strike group have just spent 20 minutes measuring each other with weapons, warnings, and seconds. 0647. One of the outer boats attempts one final, shallow inward turn from 3.5 nautical miles.
More probe than charge, perhaps looking for a reaction it can photograph or transmit. It gets the same answer as before. Immediate assignment by optics, immediate hail, immediate helicopter reposition, immediate guard by the starboard screen. The boat turns back out after less than 30 seconds. No second twist arrives. No missile, no gunfire, no boarding attempt. The first failed compression has answered the question for all 12 crews. The formation is alert, linked, and unwilling to donate a mistake. 0649. Range to all contacts now beyond 4 nautical miles, except one shadowing pair at 3.8 and widening. The destroyer ahead reports clean water forward. The cruiser reports no further inward acceleration from any contact. The carrier holds course through the lane. The transit never stops. That matters as much as anything else. In waters like this, maintaining passage is not merely navigation. It is message, law, and deterrence wrapped together in something that looks almost boring if you're not the one inside it. The Seahawk remains overhead long enough to complete the log. 12 craft, multiple coordinated vectors, repeated warnings ignored. One merchant vessel temporarily used as masking clutter. 2 boats executed high-speed stern quarter run. Warning shots employed by escort. All contacts turned away. That summary will become formal later. Right now it exists as live notes, clipped phrases, and track IDs. 0652. The closest pair cross back beyond 5 nautical miles. The starboard abeam group has dissolved into individuals. The forward 4 are no longer forward. They are simply northbound. No one on the US side pursues into escalation for its own sake. That is not the job. The job is to defend the force, preserve passage, prevent collision, deny intimidation, and capture everything worth learning. Anything louder than that is usually a sign something has gone wrong. On the bridge, the horizon opens slightly as commercial traffic spacing improves. The massive gas carrier that briefly masked the stern quarter pair is now astern and eastbound, unaware of how central it became to the most dangerous minute of the transit. Merchant crews pass through these waters every day, among forces measuring larger contests around them. Most never know how narrow some of those measurements get. 0655. Small boat defense posture remains up, but the edge has changed. One by one, the ranges stretch. 6.2 nautical miles, 6.8, 7.4. The helicopter climbs a little to widen its view, confirming no hidden contacts sitting farther north, waiting to replace the first 12. None appear. Coastal traffic remains dense but ordinary. Surface search returns to a broader mode. The raw intensity drains from the plot, leaving behind organized movement and the memory of how fast organized movement can become threat geometry. 0658. The final pair that had held longest now turn decisively north-northeast and increase distance. Their wake lines flatten into outbound tracks. The starboard quarter clears. The cruiser slides back into a less urgent offset. The destroyer resumes a more standard station ahead. Abraham Lincoln keeps moving west. Inside CIC, the room stays professional. There is no release of tension in the form of noise, only the quiet return of normal watch cadence. Tracks are downgraded from immediate threat concern to monitored withdrawal. Sensor recordings are tagged for preservation. Voice logs are marked. Video is archived. Timestamps are checked against position logs to the second. Log the engagement. At 0617 local, first anomalous surface contact detected on northerly sector. At 0621, total count 12. At 0625, classification probable FIAC. At 0630, weapons visible, repeated warnings initiated. At 0634, temporary radar and visual masking by eastbound gas carrier. At 0635, 2 FIAC break from trailing group and accelerate towards starboard quarter.
At 0638, warning shots employed by escort after continued unsafe closure. At 0640, stern quarter pair alter away. At 0641, overall swarm begins withdrawal. At 0658, all contacts opening and no longer presenting immediate threat. The position is logged in the Strait's western traffic corridor, south of the Iranian shore and north of the Musandam Peninsula. One more entry in a body of water that keeps teaching the same lesson to anyone willing to read it properly. Later, when the watches rotate and the immediate pressure has drained out of shoulders and jawlines, people will describe the encounter in plain language. 12 Iranian fast boats swarmed a US carrier in the Strait of Hormuz. That will be true. It will also be incomplete. What actually happens is more precise than that. A swarm forms. Sensors catch it early. Classification hardens. Warnings are issued. Geometry reveals intent. One masking move creates the most dangerous approach of the morning. Layered defense closes the lane. Nobody fires too early. Nobody fires too late. Nobody loses the picture. And the carrier keeps moving. By 0704 local time, the sea has gone back to looking harmless. Visibility is improving. The haze is burning off the water. Commercial traffic continues on schedule. On the flight deck, controlled movement resumes. On the bridge wings, lookouts keep scanning as if nothing happened, which is exactly how professionals make sure nothing else does. The data will travel farther than the boats did. Hull profiles, approach timing, radio fragments, crew posture, weapon presentation, reaction to warning shots, use of merchant clutter, preferred sectors, breakaway thresholds. In another room, on another day, people will study all of it and refine the next transit from it. That is one of the quiet truths of maritime deterrence. The visible outcome is distance. The real outcome is understanding. No one in the formation mistakes restraint for safety. The boats came close enough to force real decisions, close enough to test the stern quarter of a nuclear carrier in narrow water, close enough that ranges stopped being numbers and became seconds. But the line held because every station in the formation did exactly what it was there to do. The bridge kept passage. The Combat Information Center kept the picture. The escorts kept the geometry. The helicopter kept the eyes. And not once did the encounter become larger than the discipline controlling it. That is what this morning in the Strait of Hormuz reveals. Not that a carrier is too large to be challenged, not that a swarm is too small to matter, but that in water where mistakes multiply faster than wake, the side that stays calm longest usually owns the sea.